Greetings! Welcome to Epicor Eclipse ERP End of Month Report Series. This is a quick review of the Product Sales Report. The Product Sales Report will provide customer, job, invoice number, and pricing information. This is great for identifying customer purchasing habits and the effectiveness of your product pricing matrix. The Product Sales Report can be found under Reports, End of Month Reports, Product Sales Reports, Product Sales. If you do not see this option in your menu, then talk to your systems administrator and see if you can get the authorization to have your menu changed so that you have access to the end of month reports. As you can see here with the varying screens, this report, as most of the Eclipse reports are, very robust. There are, I believe, 124 different canned reports in the Eclipse system, and many of them are like this, where you've got probably 30 or 40 different options times 124. That's an awful lot of variations. We're not going to go through all of those variations because honestly I don't think we have time and you'd slip into a coma. So I'm just going to give you an example of a common configuration for a useful report. It is a fairly common occurrence that either management or your outside sales force might want to take a look at the sales of a particular customer, or perhaps all of the customers, for the entire year, and to take a look at their purchasing history, what they buy, how much they bought it for, and what kind of profit margins you made off of them. And this certainly is an extremely useful thing to know so that you can do more targeted sales efforts in the next coming year, or if you see sales dropping off, you have some idea of what specifically to question and go from there. So this is a just simple report for doing that type of thing. Here we're going to run it selected by product, sorted by customer. We want a detail level report because we want to break out all the individual products, not just the sales order and the gross totals. And most of these settings that you see here are pretty much taking the defaults. After you select this and you run it to your hold file, you're going to get a pop-up here for the report display costs, and you have a couple of options. I can't imagine you'd ever use none. You probably want some costs, or else it's not a very useful report. I suppose if you're trying to give it to a customer, and that's not unusual for a customer for us this report. It amazes me how many times I get a request from a customer, please tell me what I bought from you in the last year. It's like, don't you know? But yeah, be that as it may. Anyway, so you have the options of generic cost or cost of goods sold. The generic cost, which may go under a variety of different names in your system depending on who configured it, is the cost basis that your commissions are calculated off of. In our system we call that a calc cost, and this not only for calculating commissions, it's also used to kind of capture freight and shipping charges and embed that, or to set a market baseline above what our actual cost of goods are. The cost of goods is going to give you the real purchase cost average. So quite often if you're dealing with to the outside salesman, you're going to be doing you want to show them the commission cost because that's what's relevant to them. If you're showing to management or purchasing, you're going to want to use the purchase cost average because that's more relevant for them. So here's our report out of the hold file, and we ran this report on the bill to level because we want to capture all of the products that the customer purchased, regardless of what their jobs were. By going ahead and viewing it in the hold file like we're doing here, this gives us the ability to click on all of these links for the invoice or the product number and drill down back and forth. So if you run this report on a particular customer, it's handy to view it this way. But in most cases you're going to want to export it into Excel. With most of the canned reports in Eclipse, they give you some very useful information, but they were not designed to go into Excel cleanly. They were designed to print on green bar paper, so you get some pretty ugly results when you try to export them. Here's a variation running it on the ship to level, and that way it'll accumulate the parts in the particular jobs. So if we want to know at the job level what parts were purchased over the course of the period of time. As we can see, the format of this report looks pretty much identical to the other one. One thing that should be mentioned is looking at the extended amount column, you'll see asterisks. When you see these asterisks, the system's trying to tell you these were price overrides from off of the pricing matrix, and this is usually a red flag. This is why this report is useful for tweaking your pricing matrix, because you can run this against sets of customers that may represent a particular class in your pricing matrix, and seeing whether or not that pricing level that you set the system to produce is actually being followed. And if it's not, then obviously the pricing matrix either needs to be altered, the customer needs to be reclassified, or it's about time to have a serious talk with your inside sales force as to how come they're overriding these prices. Here are the steps that you would ordinarily take to download the report out of your hold file and onto your local hard drive of your PC for import into Excel and cleanup. Now, ordinarily, if the report is fairly clean and straightforward, you would go ahead and change the file type to Excel, which gives us a comma-separated value format, export file, and then import into Excel. Or I find usually the tab file format, and importing the tab file format into Excel is a little bit cleaner in some cases. A lot of the reports, though, even though you're going to select the right formatting, you're going to come up with gibberish and hours of cleanup, depending on how big the report is when you finally get it to Excel. And that's why over the years I have created several little conversion programs that will reformat the reports so that they come out cleanly in Excel. Here's an example of one of my little conversion utility programs, taking the report that we ran and downloaded out of the hold file in text format, so we didn't format tab or Excel, with headings. And once you run it through that, it produces a nice cleaned up tab file that you can import directly into Excel, slick as a whistle. I provide these various scripts on GitHub. The link to this particular script is right there in the heading. They are free of charge if you wish to download them, and there's an example file in the GitHub link as well, so that you can compare the formats of the report and make sure that the report that you're creating is the proper format for the script to work. All of these scripts are written in AUDITING, which is a open source programming utility for Windows, which is free of charge. You can download and install on your computer. Extremely powerful. If you're going to work with Eclipse, I highly recommend that AutoIt and AutoHotkey be installed on your machine for a variety of utilities I create, and for ones that you may want to create and adapt of your own. And this concludes our presentation on the end of month product sales report. Thank you for your attention. Hopefully this information will be useful to you. And as always, I'm not Scott Zahn.